Gospel of Matthew today. What do we know about this master and about his slaves? Well, it appears that the slaves, at least one of them, were wary of the master. And at one point, he says, "I knew you were a harsh man." This seems to totally contradict the first two slaves who reward the master, and they themselves are rewarded. This seems to blow up the whole slave and master paradigm when the master says to the two that they will enter into the joy of their master. I'm not sure what it means, but I would take a guess that it means they have won favor with the master. This seems to raise a paradox in the Bible between masters and slaves. And I say this because we have verses that says that Jesus is the master. He's addressed as master by the disciples. And in Luke 17:13, we hear they called out saying, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." One of the themes I have seen in this passage is one of the long haul. The master returns after a long time. We don't know how long that is, but it kind of brings up the reality of the long haul. As with many parables and stories, we are called to be prepared. We are called to be prepared to go the long haul. As I said last week, the people in the time of Jesus thought that he would return and that he would return pretty soon. 2,000 years later, and we're still preparing for his return. That's a pretty long haul. Isn't the long haul what we are all told to think about when we make investments? And indeed, isn't that what we have asked those who look out for our Springbrook endowment to do? One thing we can learn is that we cannot be afraid of the long haul. I got my investment statement the other day. My value went down about $2,000 last month. It's not a lot, but I know I don't have to worry about that, at least not right now, because I'm in it for the long haul. I plan to work until I don't know anymore, but I've not set a date, so I guess I'm in it for the long haul. And maybe you will determine when my long haul is over, but for now I'm in it. Quite often our decisions are based upon the long haul. When we start a new job, we usually aren't looking for the next one yet. When you buy a house, you usually are planning to stay for a while. When I was growing up, my mother got a new car every 3 years, even if it seemed to me that she didn't need a new one. I don't know what that was all about, but every 3 years she got a new car. And most of my uncles got new Cadillacs every 3 years. My mother did not drive a Cadillac. I have a truck that's 19 years old. Don's car is 9 years old, and mine is 3 years old. But I don't feel the need for a new one. Would I like a new one? Sure. But then I'd have to pay for it. And they just seem to be always more expensive than the last one. And I live in Laramie, and how far do electric cars go? That's the model that I want, an electric one. And about the only one that goes for the long haul is a Tesla, which there's no way I can afford one of those, although they are very pretty cars. Another theme I think in this passage is fear. We hear in verse 25, the slave says to the master, "So I was afraid." One thing that we have a hard time doing quite often is seeing our fears and then to let them go. We are humans. And as such, for most of us anyway, we want what we know. We fear the unknown. Fear often constricts us. When we are fearful, we often see the glass half empty or perhaps even totally dry. We don't want to go there. Hollywood would not have made so many movies and so much money from those movies if we did not fear the unknown. I can think of so many movies where the theme of fear or being afraid Think of all those movies you've enjoyed. I've enjoyed movies where the folks are afraid of something like The Dark, mainly because I know the people in the film have to fear, but I don't. I'm not going to be attacked in my car by someone with an axe. And for that, I'm usually really glad. In our own lives, isn't fear of the unknown based upon our assumptions of the future? Our fear of the unknown, our fear of the future is real and it's logical. What we should not fear is our relationship with God. For each person, their relationship with God is personal. I hope that fear is not part of that relationship for you. I want you to look at this slide. Let's see if I can get this to work now. Too far. And the translation on the left, I think that that is a fearfully written translation. For to all those who have, more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But for those who have nothing, even what they have will be taken away. That's from the NRSV, the Bible translation that we use normally in church. But for those with nothing, that which they do have, they will also have taken away. It sounds like perhaps if you just read that and nothing else, perhaps you should fear God. Or perhaps those people would fear their God because things are going to be taken away from them. When I think of those without, I would not want to take away even the meager things that they do have. This verse is kind of a little scary to me, just taking that verse, nothing else. There are many places in the Bible that don't seem to make sense, and that's one of them. This seems counter to the preaching of Jesus. Now, the verse on the right, that's something I could get behind, that I hope my God is a part of, because this translation puts God directly in the mix, and it also gives us an active role in what happens. This is from the Amplified Version on the right. For to everyone who has and values his blessings and gifts from God and has used them wisely, more will be given, and he will be richly supplied so that he will have an abundance. But from the one who does not have, because he ignored or disregarded his blessings and gifts from God, even what he does have will be taken away. God is in the mix. We are afraid of what we don't know. I've heard that many people who voted for the president in this election did not do so because they liked him, but because they thought he was an upright citizen. No, they voted because the economy is doing good. And for them, that's important. Just like our slaves and the master, they want improvement. They want a return for their money. In this story, two of them risk it all. One not so much. The other one plays it safe. I wonder what this parable would be like if the two slaves who invested it all lost it all. Would they still be valued, and would the master still be pleased? I think when looking at this, I see the greatest risk presented in this is not to risk at all, not to care deeply and profoundly enough about anything to invest deeply and give your heart away, and in the process, risk everything. Playing it safe becomes the risk, the greatest risk. Who remembers the church's 7 deadly sins? I don't remember them all, but in a commentary I read, it says it's sloth, one of the 7 deadly sins, which means not caring, not loving, not rejoicing, not living up to the full potential of our humanity, playing it safe, investing nothing, being cautious and prudent, digging a hole and putting our money in it. That is sloth, one of the 7 deadly sins. We all have gifts, talents, if you will, of love and hope and faith, generosity and service, care for the sick, the hungry, prisoners, the others, all of which are used, all of which we are to use for God's will. We should not bury our talents and our gifts. As I say at the end of every worship service, our worship has ended. Let our service now begin. And that is how you share talents, how you grow your gifts. The slave who buries his talent later rebukes the master and shows him as he is, not nice, not pleasant, and looking out for only himself. We are blessed at St. Paul's. We have some money in the bank. That money came from the hard work of the members of this congregation, who, like the two slaves, looked after the apartment complex, Springbrook, for many years, and were able to realize the growth from that investment. We now have a good portfolio, but that's not what runs this church. You all run this church. Each time one of you volunteers to help with somebody, you are being stewards of the church's resources. Each of us has a responsibility to support St. Paul's. Even in this crazy COVID time, you are supporting the church with your tithes and offerings. Those of you who pledge support and help may not be able to do so as much as you thought you would back in February, back last year in November when you did your pledging. But even if you're not doing what you thought you could, you're still helping. I'm going to be sending out an email asking for your pledge and support of St. Paul's next year. This helps us to put together a budget that is realistic and honest. A budget that you will vote on in February. We can never have too much. And indeed, what we do every December when the council meets to give out funds from our endowment, that's a gift that many pastors and churches do not have. I am so blessed to be a part of this every year. And talking about community sharing, please send an email to me or Carol if you have a place or a person or an organization you would like us to support this year, or get a form out of the box by my office and fill it out and give it to Carol. We need your input. The council works hard for all of you, but we need your input. And this year, it may be more important than ever that we help those who need our help. I have no idea what next year looks like, socially, economically, in any way at all. It could be like the last 8 months where we must stay distanced from each other. It might be there's a vaccine and we all meet and greet and have breakfast and dinners at church again. We had talked many times of having a movie night. And boy, do I wish we had done that now. I think about that quite often. But I hope to do that soon. Well, I hope to do that when it's safe to do that again. And I hope that's soon. Stewardship is something that most pastors hate to talk about. We hate to ask you for money. I kind of feel okay doing that. I know that some of you are able to support us monetarily, but others support St. Paul's with what we call time and talent. And I will take both, or either, any of that, or all of that. In February, like I said, we'll have our meeting, which is required by our bylaws. At that time, we will seat a new council, even if it's all the same people. But hopefully some of you will step forward and give us a little bit of your time. We have members who have served a long time. Maybe it's your time to share with St. Paul's as a member of the council. Asking you for support allows us to grow, we hope, and it does help with being able to set a budget. This year, expenses have gone up in the benefits that you provide to me, in the general expenses of heat and water. Some things we can't avoid. I try to keep a tight belt in the office. But we still got to have printer cartridges, and we still got to have stamps, and we still got to have electric and internet, especially internet these days. I ask you to return the email you will get, and I'm asking that because I don't want to hand out pledge cards. Each of you has a talent you can help with. And worship leaders can be at home. You don't have to be here. You can still lead from home. For me, your presence is always a gift every Sunday. So give us what you can in time and talents and even money. All of those can be of a great service to St. Paul's. This season, again, Laramie's asking us to get $2 bills from Uniwile and use them to shop locally for Christmas. It's a challenge that is challenging. It would mean going downtown and spending actual cash, touching bills, touching coins. But it's estimated that if you spend $100 in $2 bills, you help our local economy by injecting $625,000 into our local economy. That's a really good return on investment for $100. I did it last year. It says I'm contemplating it and not made a decision, but that's not true because on Friday morning I drove past the credit union, pulled in, and got my $100. I don't know that I'm brave enough to go downtown and spend it, but I got it just in case. This challenge, if you will, by our downtown merchants is also an example of the long haul. It's estimated that $2.5 million will be spent online shopping by Laramie residents this Christmas season. I'm not advocating one way or the other, but I'm giving you this information so you can be informed. Go to Uniwile for your $2 bills, spend them locally if you can. But remember, your safety is important, so don't do that if you're not comfortable with it. Let me ask who you are. Who are you? Are you a risk taker? Are you the one who buried the talent in the ground? Over and over again, Jesus invites us to be his disciples. To be his disciple is to follow him, and to follow him with our faith. It's his call to be bold and brave, to reach high and care deeply for others, but also for ourselves. To be stewards of St. Paul's, to be stewards for each other, to be stewards for the earth, and to be stewards for the one that we might be tempted to classify as the other. We are called to be stewards, period. As John Buchanan wrote, so the parable is an invitation to the adventure of faith, the high-risk venture of being a disciple of Jesus Christ. Amen, and God bless you, each and every one of you. A hymn of response, we praise you, O God, which